and Land Committee. We'd like to welcome everyone here that's here this morning, and hope that that y'all will be a lot of help for us as we make decisions here this morning. So, the first thing on the agenda would be approval of the August the 7th meeting, minutes of the August 7th meeting, and you do have a copy of that on the agenda there. So, get a motion to pass that, please. Have a second?
Second.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we'll go on to our agenda items. The first agenda item that we have is the Bradley High School property, and that's the property that's located. And we need to vote? Okay. All right, we got a motion second. Let's have a vote. Everybody
Aye.
say aye? Aye. Okay, we'll get this thing straightened out. Okay, the first agenda item is Bradley Central High School property. And so anyway, this is the property in front of Bradley High School, which they already maintain. And I don't know, but what this commission, or what this committee, I'd like to have it for open discussion at this point, and what's your all's thoughts on it? Yeah, go right ahead.
No, just thank you for placing this on the agenda today. As you said, we maintain the property and have for as long as I can remember. And so I think for us, as our campus is pretty landlocked in terms of expansion and in terms of like where we could potentially go with it in the future. And really, some may ask, what are our plans for this property at the time? I don't really have any, final plans, but I know if we were able to get the property that we could begin to, sit down, secure the finances, also secure the project that we feel is best for that front of the campus. We want that piece of property too to be, the beautification. Like we want it to be beautiful as people drive onto our campus, because we think that's important. And so, really, just for us getting this property, we feel like that we'll be able to sit down, make a great plan for what the future looks like for Bradley Central High School. And I can take any other questions.
Any more questions, Mr. Spangler? County Attorney, we'll ask you the question. What procedure do we take here?
If you are going to convey it and I have not looked at this at all, but I'm assuming it's deeded to Bradley County currently. Is that correct?
From memory, that's correct.
If it is, we would need to vote for you all to vote for us to deed it to the Board of Education, and ask me to prepare the deed and ask the mayor to sign that deed. It would definitely need to go to the full commission.
Mr. Mayor, is there any use for that property for the county? Is there any long-term plans for that property, or is there anything that the county has planned on doing with that?
No, from memory, when we built Bradley High School, we retained the highway frontage. And then later on, we approved building the central office on a part of that highway frontage. And then later on, they came back and wanted to use it for soccer fields or whatever. And we approved them using it for that. There wasn't any deed work done from memory. All this is from memory because it's been a few years ago. So no, we've had no plans. It was always intended for Bradley High School or something to do with Bradley. Like I said, we used part of it to build the central office on. When they started using it for soccer fields, there was just never any need to do anything with the deeds because they had full use of it. But we've never had any planned use of it other than things like that.
Mike, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have no issue with making a motion to deed that property or have the county mayor or county attorney to take the steps to deed that property to the school system.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's worth pointing out that that parcel also includes the central offices. If there's any reason we shouldn't proceed.
We would do it all if we were going
Yeah.
to. See, there's schools built on property that weren't deeded to schools. Central office was built on property that wasn't deeded to schools. That's never been a problem. Some are deeded to schools, some's deeded to Bradley County. But if you're gonna change the deed, you probably ought to change the whole parcel, which includes central office.
Okay,
No
could
need-
we get the county attorney to do that then, and then just bring it back to the full commission?
Can you include the Rebel Drive-In in that deed as well? Or Spain, would you like that? All right, there we go.
Yeah.
That in the form of a motion.
Well, it's already, they approved it, right?
Yeah, you've already got it approved.
Yeah.
So it'll go to the
Full
commission.
commission for approval.
Okay, that's all we have for the school. We'll just, we'll keep you informed what's going on. And I'm sure that, like I say, we don't have a problem with it, I don't think, up here. So, we'll let you know from the county attorney. Appreciate y'all being here. Okay, okay, next thing that we have, we're gonna skip number B and we're gonna take it to number C. We're gonna go down, we're gonna take, Bradley County Recreation Park property. It's number 2. And, you do have a map of that, I believe. You did have a map of it, 27 acres. And, we need some input on that from this committee. So, what's your,
If I could, Mr. Chairman, tell you what got it to this point. First of all, we have sold county property more times than once over the years. We do that from time to time if it's unneeded, unplanned use, and so forth. When someone comes to Bradley County and offers to buy property, if we're using it or plan on using it, usually I kind of head it off at that point and say, we have no plans to sell this property because we have plans for it. Sometimes they come making offers on property that we have no plans for. This one, and there is a second one I'd like to bring up in a few minutes. Someone has offered to buy the property. Andy's here that hopefully, other than a walking track, there's never been any use mentioned of this property. It's very rolling. I think you went down there and walked over it. It's almost mountainous, wooded, railroad property. A developer might buy it and level it and make use of it, but we've never been able to make use of it. It's cost prohibitive as far as I'm concerned for ball fields. So when someone comes to us to buy property that we have no planned use for, we always explain to them that it's several steps to go through, and Crystal's here to explain those steps. But the first step is it has to be declared surplus. And if it's declared surplus, then the next steps, she has some planning commission things to address, and then we put it out and take bids on it. And then give you an example, I don't want to get off my train of thought, but when schools built a new Waterville school, they walked away from the old Waterville school. It became ours. For years, I had vandalism issues at Waterville School until the state come along and widened the highway and needed right-of-way, and I swapped right-of-way, with your all's approval, I swapped right-of-way for them tearing down the building. Then the commission said, well, let's sell the property now, because we had highway frontage. You all voted to sell the property. We put it up for sale. We took bids, and you refused all bids, and we didn't sell. So at that point, you have that option. You don't have to sell, but you're declaring it surplus and seeing what offers you get. This commission voted not to sell the Waterville property. A few years went by, and then we came up with a use for the fire department and build a fire station and a training station down there. So you declare it surplus if you're interested. Then after she addresses the planning commission, then we advertise it and we take bids. And at that point, you can vote not to sell or to sell. But I only bring it to you whenever there's no use plan for it and if there's an offer been made. And so an offer has been given on this one, and we explained that we would start the steps to see if you were interested in proceeding. That's what's brought us to where we're at today.
Okay. We've got a gentleman here that would like to speak to this property.
Thank you. My name is Benjamin Berry, Berry Engineers. I saw this in the paper and was quite surprised. I mean, this is the Recreation Park on Urbane Roads, the largest county park, probably most used. And the 27 acres you're talking about, represents a third of that site, a third of that total site. You know, if your decision as to whether this is surplus or not, I'm here to say it. In my opinion, it's absolutely not surplus. You know, and there's a quote in the paper. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'll have to go on as a paper. But there's a quote that, you know, you're not using it. You don't have any plans to use it, and it can't be used because of the rugged terrain, which, you know, follows what the mayor was saying. Just want to give my quick thoughts on those viewpoints. You know, the present situation is not being used. And, you know, this land to me provides opportunity to expand that existing park that you have. It's not a new park. It's an opportunity to expand an existing facility that you already have in place, right in the heart of the community, right central to really a lot of the population that's in this county. You know, our county is growing. We see that all the time. We see the demands of that. And with that demands on our park services, on our recreation, it's going to grow as well. It's going to continue throughout the years. And having unused land, especially adjacent to an existing facility, it's okay. That's fine, because it does provide opportunity for future generations to make different decisions or expand that direction. You know, my parents' generation, softball was huge, baseball was huge, built a bunch of ball fields. My generation, soccer was huge. We had a lot of soccer fields. I played soccer, youth soccer. 10 years ago, I had never heard of pickleball. 2 years ago, I'd never heard of frisbee golf. But I'll tell you, we've got 3 employees in our office that are in their 20s. They all 3 play pickleball and frisbee golf. So we don't know what requirements or what needs are going to be looked in the future and demanded of the county. And I think that we need to keep that flexibility if we're going to continue to be a place that young people want to live. You know, the future situations you have no plans to use, I think that can be fixed. You know, just make a plan. Make a plan to use it. What could happen? You know, dream big. Tomorrow I'm speaking and doing a presentation over at Parkview Elementary for their engineering classes and 5th graders. And I don't know if you remember a similar situation over at Lee, where the kids got together and tried to come up with a fix for the bridge. You know, the creativity that the kids have always surprises me. And so, you know, what if that class decided, hey, what would you do with this land? What would you want to do with the park? But come up with a plan. Like that's a fixable thing. Let's figure out what it can be used for. And the last thing is that it's not usable. I would say, you know, first, there's really no such thing as unusable parkland. If it's unusable, it almost makes sense that parkland is its highest use. But parkland has value, whether it's active sports like baseball or passive. I mean, Fletcher Park has been passive for years, just a walking trail. And here this year, they put in frisbee golf. Now it's going to host a regional tournament with people in October. No one would have envisioned that. And now it's reality. You know, if you look at that property in the back, there's a creek, there's a low area, it's flat. So, well, that's not useful. What are you going to use that for? Fletcher Park, again, for frisbee golf. There was, even if you take it in a non-recreation sense, the old Rolling Hills Golf Course at Candies and Freewill, it was used for not only a walking path for the community, but it was used for wetland mitigation at the airport. Saved six figures on the airport construction, to be able to do wetland mitigation within the county on property that wasn't used. Maybe that's something you put in your pocket. But more interestingly, you know, the way that that terrain goes, and I've looked at it, you have the ball fields, it kind of dips down into a low point, comes up to a high point, and then dips down to the creek. There's a high point, there's a low point. It can easily be leveled out for active uses. And if you do that, there's about 15 acres that is usable with some dirt work, with some clearing, with some dirt work. Just to kind of put that in perspective, familiar with Tinsley Park, you come in, you got the tennis courts, the pickleball courts, and the 3 softball fields, that parking lot there. That whole area, 15 acres. So nearly all of Tinsley Park would fit what we're talking about if it was leveled. You know, right after this was in the paper, I think Tony Womack spoke to Rotary, but he's the aquatics. He spoke about the need for an aquatic center. But there, all these kids, there's 200 kids over the summer, aquatics, like swim team aquatics, not just swimming lessons, swim team aquatics. 200 kids, and they're using pools built in the 1960s. So, you know, that could, I'm not saying that's the right spot. I don't know if it is or not, but it would fit for perspective. So, you know, all that to say, if the decision today is whether it's a surplus or not, it's clear to me. I'm hoping it's clear to you. It's definitely not surplus.
Mr. Chairman, I've a question for the mayor and for Andy. Is there any plans? Does the Parks and Rec Department have any plans for this? I mean, this falls kind of under what you guys do. Is there any plans for that 27 acres currently? Is it in use at all currently?
It's not in use. I don't have any current plans for it. It's just grown up woods at this point. I mean, even down to the field. There used to be a field that we maintained in the back as far as bush hogging, but that was probably 15 plus years ago. So but I don't have any plans for it right now.
Is the land safe? Is there any people living on that property currently or anything like that that you know of?
I can't answer that because I've not been back there in a while.
Okay.
Any more input? Mike?
Andy, just for a quick question, how hard would it be to put like walking trails on that, or for just future, or maybe off-road bike trails, something like that?
Disc golf.
And it's probably better for Ben since he's looked at, would that be usable for that, the grade? I would think so, but
I'm sure that you could use that land for those things.
Okay.
Now, to some of the things that he brought up, we do have a plan for some disc golf at the Elrod Park. So, and at this point, if I were to try to go with walking trails, I would probably go around the existing part that we use just so it's close to the ball. I mean, my vision of a walking trail at the county park would be something that was tied into the ballparks. Just so if you brought your kid to practice and you wanted to walk the trail, you could still be fairly close. But are there opportunities like that for that land? Yes, you could do those things in that. Now, I don't know what the cost would be. I mean, obviously he's correct. There would be costs in it as far as clearing it off because it's pretty thick forested area at this point. Now that was the last time I walked through there, and it's been several years. But I mean, I'm open to anything, whether it's at that park or at Elrod Park. It would be easier to do those things at Elrod Park right now because you're dealing with fields, so you're not clearing as much wooded area. But if we were to move that way and you were to sell it and we could turn it back into the existing park there or our other parks, that would be great. If we had ideas to develop that area for parks, that would be great. I'm on board for either one. It's going to benefit me either way.
I think my question's for the mayor in terms of cost prohibitive. Is there any sort of understanding of what it would cost to do the most basic, if it's a walking trail or anything, disc golf, what would that cost just from the standpoint of clearing the land, getting it prepped to use, or even if we go to a big picture, like, hey, we've got a vision for, all 26 acres for an aquatic center or whatever that may be, what would that cost to make that happen?
The last time they looked at walking trails, and it was pretty costly, but then you also get into the issues like the city has with the Greenway of patrolling those walking trails. You can't just build them and forget about them. You got to maintain them, you got to patrol them. I never said that it was unusable. I said it was cost prohibitive. And the proof's in the pudding. And then, again, I don't care. You can turn it down. When somebody requests to buy it, my job is to bring it to you, see if you're interested, okay? So I'm not going to lose any sleep. But instead of developing this property, we went and bought Eureka Road property and built a ballpark. This commission said at that time, we can build a ballpark there cheaper than we can here. Instead of developing this property, we went and bought Elrod Park. And this commission said we can build a park there cheaper than we can use this property. That's twice that you guys have chosen to go elsewhere to build a park because it was much less costly than to use this mountain. Now, mountain on a railroad is valuable to some people for industrial use. They can level that mountain a lot cheaper than we can for a golf course. So that's why there's interest with other people. But that's not saying you can't sit back and come up with a use for any property. It's been there how many years? 40 years, never drawn a dollar of income to the county. And if you want to continue to do that, that is perfectly fine with me. My job was to have brought it to you to get your thoughts and your vote on how to proceed. So I can tell the person that's requesting to buy it that we're not interested. But it's sat there for 40 years, and nobody's came forward with money to do any of these wonderful ideas.
And the process, and Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, the process is that our committee sends it to the full commission to declare it a surplus, or do we declare it a surplus?
No, this committee would just make a recommendation to the full.
And by declaring it surplus, we simply open it up for bids, correct?
Yes, if you look at the resolution, it's, once it's declared surplus, then it authorizes the mayor to go through the public bidding process. And I have been asked about the concept of a minimum bid. You can certainly do that if you choose to put a minimum bid in but you have to do it in the public notice bidding process if you choose to do that.
And if someone came in and offered $600 million for this, we would still have the right to say, absolutely not, we're not selling this, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
You would have been out the cost of the advertising, is the thing.
Okay, I have one thing I'd like to say. I've been out there and looked over some of the property, and it's, if you got a walking track, if you like to walk downhill and uphill, well, it'd be okay. But that's what it is, just a big mountain out there. And but anyway, I'd like the committee to make a recommendation to declare it a surplus. And, hey, go ahead, Mr. Alford.
Crystal, if my memory serves me right, when we offered the Peerless Road property, did we declare that as surplus when we offered that to be sold, Sarah? It's been several years ago. I don't remember ever putting that down as surplus. Did we?
I'm not sure. I would have to look. I know we've definitely gone through the surplus property process before. That's what you're supposed to do to make that decision first before you.
I just don't ever remember voting on surplus property before since I've been on the commission. I may have, but I don't remember it.
We certainly have. Mayor's probably better at remembering all those than I am, but I do know since I have been here, we have definitely done them. In fact, I used a previous one to create the resolution that we have here. Blue Springs Road was one. Primitive Settlement was one.
Yeah, I remember those.
Moore Road, I believe, was one. But there definitely have been several. Because the surplus designation is sort of what gets the process started, because you obviously should not sell property unless you decide that you don't have a use for it, which is what you're doing when you deem it surplus.
I've been out that property a bunch of times myself. I've walked it also with several people, by myself mostly, looked at topographics on it. It's not a mountain. People keep referring to it as a mountain. It's not that, it's got 7 or 8 really pretty good pieces of property. It's got 7 or 8 pretty flat areas. Now, I'm not for looking at pieces of property because I got a feeling this person that's made an offer on this building is wanting to put storage buildings on it. So I'm not in favor of anything that would look like a storage building right beside our parks. So that's my comment on that part of it. So I don't think we need to even look at selling it myself or even thinking about selling it at this point in time, because with everything growing in this county, I think recreation should be top of our line, and we should be looking at developing that piece of property in some way or another. Thank you.
Okay, we need some more input. Mike?
If I'm not mistaken, we voted a few years ago to move that property to the city. Is that not correct? It's in the city limits at this point. If there was storage units that was going to be built on that, typically that would go through the planning commission for approval. Remember, this is city property. It will not go through the county planning commission. It will go through the city.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think that some of this property out there is definitely usable for our Parks and Rec. Is there some acres out of the 27 that are not usable for our Park and Rec that are closer to these businesses? Possibly, and I don't know. But I'm in agreement. I think property is probably the most powerful and the best thing that you can have in this day and age. And for me, I don't feel like the county needs to be selling this 27 acres at this point in time. I think that this property can be looked at later on down the road. And I don't know, can I table this and not send it back to the full commission, or does it need to be sent to the full?
You all certainly could do nothing, which of course would not be a recommendation to come out of this committee. So you certainly don't have to. I would assume that the mayor would take that as a, no, we're not deeming it surplus, and be able to take that response back to the interested purchaser. So no action would be not deeming it surplus.
Mayor?
Either way you want to do that, that's fine.
Do you want
as
an
long
up and
as I have a
down?
response.
Do you want an up and down vote, or do you want to?
It would probably be that way of being the record that you voted not to recommend.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend to take a vote of not recommending to sell this property and not deeming it surplus.
Like a triple negative.
Yeah, I know.
Do you have a second?
Georgia education.
Okay, we've got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The motion
The
is
motion
not,
is
is
not
to
to
recommend not,
Is recommend
Declare
not
it.
selling it.
Not selling it.
not declaring it surplus at this point.
Okay.
And that passed, right? I have another one I'd like to bring up just to get it out of the way too, and we will notify the person that was interested in buying that property that there is no interest in selling. Dalton Pike, the remaining part of Waterville School, that we now have made use of about half of the property for a training facility and also a fire station. But there's 5.6 acres that is still down there growing up, again, bringing in no revenue. We have no planned use for it, and we have an offer on the property. Again, I explained to the person who made the offer on the property that I would take it to the commission to see if they had any interest in declaring it surplus. It's the field behind the fire station, the field behind the old Waterville School. Is what we're referring to, even though you haven't probably seen anything on it. It's the field. It's 5 acres behind the field down there. It's flat. It's buildable probably. Has no sewer. But you want to go walk it before you make a decision, or if you want to have the same attitude and say we don't want to sell any dirt that we own, then go ahead and make that decision today. so I can tell the people.
Mike,
I'm almost afraid to ask this question now because, my understanding was that that property was wetland. Is it buildable or is it wetland?
Well, in case you want to sell it, let's don't knock the property. We want to get a good price for it.
Listen, I'm scared to say anything
Are
about
you
it. Yeah.
interested in selling? That's the only thing you need to let me know.
what, Mayor, what
If we did
access
sell
do
it,
you
we
have to that
certainly would
property
make no
to get into it?
representations about it.
Right. That property has access from two different roads, the road that turns down beside the fire station and, the road that, goes down through there to the middle school, whatever the name of that, Troy Road, is that, I don't know. Anyway, it's two roads that it has access to. The person that has made an offer would like to buy it and build a house on it, he says. So whether he can, according to my cues, I don't know. But I told him we had no planned use for it. I would see if you all were interested.
Mike,
Oh, yeah. In this case, yes, I'll make the motion for us to deem it surplus and sell it.
It was the old ball fields for Waterville
Yeah,
Elementary for
Know
years and
exactly
years.
what it is.
yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It just feels like we've set a precedent with our previous vote that we're not gonna sell any land because dirt's the most precious thing we own, but now we're selling land that we own. So, I mean, how do we navigate that water? No pun intended, Commissioner.
Mayor, you need to answer that.
You could justify in your mind that the mountain that's not a mountain you want to keep and the flat land that is flat land you want to sell. I guess you could rationalize that.
It ain't a mountain.
It's 90 feet difference in the terrain if you want to look at the topo maps. 90 feet or 80-something feet difference in this spot and that spot. I don't know how many feet it takes to be a mountain. Maybe it's just a big hill, but it is something.
I think what concerns me is regardless of the land, it's the precedent that we set. And now you're saying this land has this value and that land doesn't have value when, you know, anytime we want, we can sit up and say, well, hey, we can't sell land because dirt's the most precious thing. Well, I mean, dirt's dirt. So if we own it, either we should sell it or we should not sell it.
Mr. Chairman.
Mike,
Well, what y'all?
I just had a question. Did you say it was used as a training facility for fire department currently? The land in front of it?
Yeah, the highway frontage we use for a training facility, the indoor training facility and the outdoor training facility and the fire station. So we're using about half of the property.
Is the other half of the property in the future being able to be used for, could be used for advancement of the fire department or use? Yeah, that we didn't have
This is a
anything in our packet
resolution and
about it.
everything. I'll just pass it all to you if you want to look at the maps. Again, if you're an engineering company looking at future uses, it could be used for a lot of things down the road. In the meantime, it's growing up and bringing in no revenue, so for the near future, there's no plans. We don't plan on expanding the fire station. We don't plan on building a walking trail through these woods that have grown up. We have no plans, but when you vote with some money to do something, we can do a lot of things with it.
Mr. Chairman, the way I justify it in my own head is the other is attached to an actual park that's an active park. This is attached to not a park, it's attached to a fire department that isn't using it for anything other than to shoot their hoses over on it, I guess. I don't know. But it's just there.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Well, the recreation park did mow it for a time many years ago. Yeah, more than probably 15 schools left it, and then they mowed it just for the heck of mowing it so people could have a playground. Eventually, that quit over time. I think it quit whenever the church leased it from us to use. The Waterville Baptist Church leased it for a year or two to use for their recreational use. And I think when that lease went away, it just began to not be used and grow up.
Okay, does this committee have a recommendation on what to do with that property at Waterville?
He says the mic's not on, but you did hear me. Yeah, the motion was to make it surplus, but there is no second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second
The motion is to sell it, correct?
to sell it.
Motion is to take it to the full.
Yeah.
Surplus.
Yeah.
And take it to the full commission. Yeah. All in favor of that? You heard the motion? Anybody opposed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I would like to say something just on the record. We're not selling the land. This is a vote to send this to the commission, to full commission, to note it as surplus. So the commission's going to vote to deem it as surplus, to take bids. Then that process would go to the full commission for us to vote on accepting a bid. So this is not in any capacity selling any land. This is the starting point of the process, correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us how that reads?
The motion actually by Commissioner Hughes was to deem it surplus and to sell it. As a that's the recommendation to the county commission. That was your motion.
Do I wish?
The motion, yeah, you should correct it.
That's
I
why.
can correct
That's why I
that and
voted
make it
no.
just deem it as surplus and send it. Who seconded that? If you're okay with me amending that to just change it to surplus.
So
Do we need to vote on that again?
please,
I think so, yes.
Okay.
because I would vote for that if I'm not going to vote to sell it, but I would vote for it to go to the full commission.
All in favor?
All in favor? Anybody opposed?
The other comment I would like to make, if you look at that resolution, I know you probably have not had an opportunity, that's what will actually go to the full commission, and it sets forth exactly what we're doing, which is deeming it surplus and then going through the public bid offering process.
Should have just read this.
Any more questions on that property? All right, we've got we've got everything clear for his property now. Towards the property at the recreational park and also at Central High School, Bradley Central. Any questions? Everything clear, Crystal? Recommendation, all the recommendations from the committee. Clear enough, okay. All right, we'll go to the next. Any more questions on the property? Okay, next we'll go to annexation by referendum. I see we have the city manager here. Appreciate you being here, Joe. But anyway, I guess, well, I'm going to let somebody else start. Go right ahead.
I'll start. I guess my question as I've researched this and I've talked to our counselor on this and the mayor's office, just what exactly is our role as a commission in terms of, I read this as Tennessee code and the law, the state law. So what is our role in terms of, as, in regards to the county commission and how we maneuver through that law?
Well, to answer that specific question, is fairly easy, in my opinion at least, based on the law. The only time the county commission gets involved in annexation is if it is a non-contiguous annexation by resolution. Those are the ones that you all see where there's an agreement. We've done those before. The other types of annexation, you're not asked to do anything, so we don't have any role, I guess, in that process, if it's by referendum or if it's contiguous.
And so what is the role today in terms of our committee specific to annexation?
Well, long story, I guess, when it comes to the growth plan, what we went through, the growth plan, and what we can do now when it comes to annexation. And I guess probably, Mayor, would you want to speak to that?
I'll just say this, and Crystal can explain it if you want her to, the more the law. The annexation laws are one thing, and if you ask an attorney about annexation laws, you get an answer on that. But this other law is outside the annexation law. Is that correct? You want to just pick up there and explain the difference in this, because some people are looking at annexation laws, and they go by the growth boundary. I mean, we wasted a lot of time a couple years ago creating a growth boundary. But this other law doesn't go by the growth boundary. It says you can do it by referendum outside the growth boundary. That's what's confusing some people, the two different laws.
Municipalities' urban growth boundary, unless there's a referendum which is held, and that's gonna be, if you look, it's not in the annexation section is what the mayor's talking about, but 658-111 subpart C2 says, as an alternative to a municipality annexing in a county's planned growth area or rural area by first amending the growth plan, which is the normal way. A municipality may annex within a county's planned growth area or rural area, but the annexation must be by referendum only and not by ordinance. So they are not allowed to annex the way where they do a resolution under that method. The municipality must follow the referendum process as provided in 651, 104, and 105, which is back to the annexation statutes. So that is the only method that they can change the growth boundary without going through the normal process or going outside of the growth boundary.
Okay, I got a question. I guess we had a 20-year growth plan. That's the way, am I not right? That's where it started?
Yes.
With a 20-year growth plan. And that was what, in 2003?
I am not sure exactly, but that sounds about right.
Somewhere around there, and then amended in 12 whenever we added the industrial park area down there. It was amended then from memory because that was outside of the growth boundary.
And it can also be amended by the process. There's a specific statutory process, which is what I was reading from, to amend that growth plan.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
2003, Corey? Sorry, just wanted to get that. Corey said in 2000 and then 2010 was the over here.
Okay, I think probably what we're going to have to do with this article is move to our legislation, and we're going to have to get some input from our legislation. And yes, Louis, go ahead.
No, you're through.
Well,
I would just say, Mr. Fibish and them back there, I'd like to know why they were going through referendum rather than going through a normal normal way of annexing pieces of property outside the county line or outside the city line. Is there a reason that you're going to the referendum rather than the regular way?
Well, I want to share with you, just stopped by today, Senator Ledford asked us, or challenged us yesterday to come to a commission meeting, so I was, happened to.
Is that what it took?
So your question is, we could certainly do that. Haven't fully developed our process. I think today we talked about playing. The only thing that we've done so far is ask if there are people out there that would be in that and get some of that information and all of that. So we're just asking if there's interest. Really, where we have a clear plan.
Mr. Favis, I'm sorry, but Mr. Favis, just one quick question. Is the referendum, so it's the referendum that I'm understanding is one that basically it'll go up to vote by the property owners, which is there's one property owner, that's the one person that gets to vote on whether they do it. If a developer buys a farm out, they decide they want it developed into the city, that to have sewer, we agree you had to have sewer, you have to be in the city. So, two questions actually. If this developer buys this property and it's on the county line, the city sewer is 20 miles away, just an example. Is the city going to, I think you have 7 years, is that correct? Are you going to run that line to that property and give that developer, put that property in the city and give them access to sewer, or will they have 7 years to do that? And the other question is that correct that the only person that votes on it is the property owner?
I'm not the expert. I think there's a couple different ways that it can be voted on. I think that this and talk intelligently, certainly. I think our goal is to only utilize really the current infrastructure. It doesn't make any sense for stations don't have infrastructure, roads. If there happens to be a situation because it's the property owner requesting station. But I think that we're pretty sensitive, cost benefit analysis. We're not going to spend Cleveland Utilities spend $1 million for property. If there's something that makes sense from a cost benefit, then I think we have conversations. Have the council make judgment whether it's in the city, whether it's essentially the best interest of the city, and we're very sensitive to like development that maximum for an infrastructure, not places that don't. So I think that eliminates probably. I think conversation is important. The mayor and on all of these topics, forward to the county as far as bringing business and development,
Mr. Favis, I have one more question, please, and I'm sorry I'm cutting into it. I hope that while you're doing these discussions, because in the past, a lot of the discussion has been about infrastructure, the roadways itself. I hope that you're looking at that because that's throwing that much more traffic on these back county roads that are by no means wide enough to handle a large subdivision. So I hope that while you're doing this, that you're also looking at that also.
Things Jackie, that we, if there's a road, look at it, that at some point we may have to redevelop that road, reconstruct that road, probably the right word, is that's part of the cost benefit analysis, and there's also a safety factor that if we go and do that there are other issues could have in infrastructure for many cars, and we don't want to put any safe driving. We analyze and we look at all those things, and I can assure, and we're happy to have a conversation, that we bring solutions. Those are
Hey, Joe, so you made a comment when Commissioner Hughes was talking about sewer, about if someone is going out here and plotting a land and wanting to put it in the city, so, and you said that it'd be a cost-benefit analysis. So, and that obviously would be with Cleveland Utilities. So is this looking at cost-benefit analysis for broadband? Because Cleveland Utilities is now going to be providing internet services. So is that in the picture of why we're wanting to expand the city limits to bring in more broadband to the county areas? Is that, because that's been an issue for us in the county. So I'm just curious about that 7-year plan and everything like that.
Never actually held that or had that conversation. I mean, it's all kind of new, and they're trying to figure it out, and we're probably away from that. We haven't actually had those conversations to address that. Theoretically, that would be potentially part of services that could be provided, but I the person that really addressed that.
Mr. Chairman, I know this is a state legislator legislator problem, and it comes from the state about this 7 years that the city, if they annex a property, they have 7 years to provide services. I'm concerned that 7 years is too long. I know of a gentleman out, I believe in the 4th district, that had his property annexed into the city, and he's still waiting on sewer. And it's been, I think, longer than 7 years that he's gotten sewer, that he's been annexed in, and still waiting for services. I would love to see us make a recommendation for whether it's legal and legislative to be able to send a letter, whether we want to make that recommendation. But I think that we need to look and have the state and our representatives look at this time frame of 7 years and what that does, because, to me, day one, if a property gets annexed by referendum to the city, day one, they need to be providing services such as fire and EMS and roads and things that are used every day. I understand that it takes time to get sewer and electricity and water and utilities out to a property, but if we're going to go and annex a road or a plot of land, outside of the city limits, then that all that needs to happen. To me, whether it's trash, it's road work, it's schools, all of that. I mean, that kind of stuff needs to happen day one of the new annexation ordinances. And I would like our state legislators and our attorneys to look at that and make sure that, to see if that's doable, possible, to make that, hopefully state law.
And just to remind everyone, this is a request from the property. They know all the requests. There isn't anyone who knows. There's a time frame that's been.
And I understand that, and I understand that it's the request of the property owner, but for 7 years, we're still having to, at the county, now this land is now part of the city, and for 7 years, we're still having to have up to 7 years to still provide services for those people, whether it's fire, EMS.
No.
No?
On
Is
day
that not?
one, we provide.
Just what? Just sewer?
Just, so all
Okay.
the other services on day one, we take all of those.
All of
Just
it?
Sewer.
Water,
that-
sewer, water, and electricity, or if just sewer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming here, Joe. And it feels like you're on the firing squad here. I'm sorry you walked up to the podium. I was going to say, don't walk up. You shouldn't have done that. Question about.
We're always willing to have.
Oh, no, that's
have a
awesome.
Conversation, and Ledford has challenged me about a year to stop by, and I guess I picked either the wrong or the right day, depending on.
Well, and I think
on
it's
your
great,
perspective, right?
and I would say this, I hope that, I cannot speak for the full commission, but for me personally, I hope that we can find a way to be a great teammate to you guys. You know, we're in this county together and in the city together, and I hope that we can find opportunities to work well with our city colleagues. I think that's important. My question is this, and I read about the plan of service, and all of this is very new, and it's interesting learning to me. Specific to the Durkee Road property, I read in the city council meeting minutes that there was a discussion about who was providing the sewage in terms of plan of service. Is that typical that is that always designated, hey, this person's paying for that in terms of the developer, or how does that unfold, and is timing a part of the plan of service as well?
That's up to Cleveland Utilities to determine. In this particular instance, the timing seemed to be right. Is that they're building a line right that location as we speak, and so that means it would probably, since the project was already a project that was developed several years ago, is that probably be available more in immediate fashion, and that's just a conversation between Cleveland Utilities and their customers.
Yes, sir. Amount.
Thank you. Crystal, real quick, this process that you outlined, it has been done before. This isn't the first time, correct? Charleston?
Yes, Charleston's the only one I can think of.
So
I'm not aware that the city of Cleveland has.
I don't know this, but Charleston, a property owner in Charleston requests annexation to the city of Charleston. And then they, quote unquote, held an election, so to speak. And then Charleston annexed it. And now that property is, they followed that process that the city is now looking at. So it's been done before.
That is my understanding.
And that,
yes.
I don't remember it ever coming to the county
No, it does
or
not.
anything like it did for the others.
It is definitely clear that under the referendum process, nothing goes through the county. There's no request. And then the other thing is, this law was changed in 2014, so it's certainly not new by any stretch of the imagination, but there was a wholesale change to annexation law in 2014. So to my knowledge, the city of Cleveland has not done it by referendum since that time.
But it has been done.
Has been done, yes.
And with Charleston. So you mentioned a few minutes ago that you're at the very beginning of the process. I happened to be at one of your city councilmen. What was on your agenda? What action was taken on that day with respects to this property?
Well, we put a deadline out there so that if people were interested and to file their interest in that, because what the process that we have to show interest, and then we do a cost-benefit analysis on whether it makes sense for the county, the city,
right,
all the different Cleveland utilities and everyone. Because that's all it's been done is say, hey, if there's someone out there that may be interested in this, let us know. And that's the only action that we've taken.
So on your agenda that day, you had a letter from, I guess, Mr. John and Joan Gillian. I believe they were asking, right? What was
that would be a coincidence. That's a separate process.
That's it.
I believe the planning commission, planners have put that through.
And there was a map that outlined what would be annexed and all that. So I just want to make sure crystal clear. Right now, you're just looking, you're saying this land, that's what doesn't make any sense. Why are you even talking about it if you haven't had anybody ask you about it?
Well, we're just throwing it out there.
Why are you throwing it out there?
To see what options are out there. That there have been people in the past that have asked that are they really willing to go that thing? And that's really what, just like you are starting the process to put surplus we're starting the process to see is there any interest.
But in that case that you just heard about, a citizen was the catalyst to the conversation.
Right.
It seems to me you're the catalyst to the conversation. Because you're saying, we're just seeing if there's anybody interested.
No. I said there had been people in the past that have asked about it. And
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand. I was under the impression that the annexation was now almost a foregone conclusion. And I'm hearing you today saying that is not the case. I was wrong for thinking that.
we've had we've had no direct conversations with council members. Is we're just collecting information right now. As we go through our process, we're happy to share individually or with the mayor on what we get and keep everyone informed. Right now, we just don't have a lot.
So my last question: we have had non-continuous annexation. It did come to the county commission. There was an intergovernment agreement on services, and I'm sure, as you stated a few moments ago, that you did a cost-benefit analysis on that. So what decides whether or not you to do it by ordinance or referendum when you do your cost-benefit analysis? Because you did on both methods, I assume.
I'm not sure I understand.
What the property that we did, I guess, on Pleasant Grove and over there by, I forget by Prospect, the ones we've done before where it did come, that was the method that you chose to use, knowing that it was going to have to come to the county commission. Now that this option is available, why the change in the method that you're annexing? The Pleasant, like you did with Pleasant Grove, you did by ordinance. This one you're not going to do by ordinance.
Well, I mean,
what in the cost of benefit analysis are any of your discussions that you and the city council say it is better for us to do it this method instead of the method that we did for Pleasant Grove?
keeping all the options and trying to, if there's people out there that want to exercise their property rights and to be annexed into the city, giving them options for them to make choices.
Options. Thank you.
Want to ask, you said in the past people have talked about requesting this. Can you define past for us? Is that in the past month, the past year, in the past 10 years? Because it seems like it's just come up all of a sudden.
I think it's consistently throughout the last 6 years that someone will ask. Kind of said, well, we don't really want to do that, so now we're just kind of saying there's another tool and just giving people options.
Mike.
Okay. Mr. Favas, if this referendum passes, is it correct that you'll be able to go outside the growth plan, the 20-year growth plan, to pull property into the city, or is it keep it within the 20-year growth plan?
It depends on that cost-benefit analysis.
So it is possible it could go outside then?
Theoretically.
Any more questions? Mayor?
I changed subject on you, Joe, since you're here and you asked for the hot seat. Now, seriously, do you have an update, anything on the fire garage potential swap?
We do. We proposal that we were going to, if I knew you were here, I would have brought it.
Okay.
And I understand that they go through this committee, and that was one too. So,
Right.
that you should probably get it by the end of the week, and allow you guys to look at it. We've tried to be trying to reach a resolution to a long-standing issue. I think we've met any of your requests and discussions. Certainly meet.
Okay, great. Good to know. And whenever we get that, then I'll bring it to this committee and ask for you to meet and look at it, okay?
Yes, sir.
When you guys came here, the urban growth boundary plan was on your desk. I would just like to request to put that in our minutes today, if that's okay.
Joe, I hadn't said anything. I guess it's my time. Last night we had a TCCA meeting and we were talking about roads, I guess. Of course, this pertains to the whole council down there, I guess. When you annex a place, when you take an annex, and I know areas where you have, why you leave the road out. And you know, at least you could have took half of that road, at least been responsible for half of it, and at least let us be half of it, still all of it. But anyway, that's happened in some places, and even in our district, it's happened. And another thing out here was talking about Derrick Key Road property there, what's happened there. And of course, that gets to the owner of the property, but it never gets to the people around that property. And they're the one that's raising Cain, the people that lives outside of that property area. And when it just comes, when it's, especially in my district, and I guess everybody else feels the same, when it comes out of my district, and I'm real concerned about it, because that's the people that vote for me. And that's, it's not all about voting, it's about just satisfying those people. And sometimes I get awful aggravated when it comes to annexation. I wasn't for the growth plan anyway, never was. And of course, I know you got to grow at some point, but still, I wish they'd do it a little different. At least contact us and tell us we're going into your area and we're going to try to annex part of that or whatever, and let us fight for it. But a lot of times that don't happen. So I just need to spill my beans. That's all.
Yeah, and the roads are actually a very important piece. But the last several that we've worked together on is that we have taken all the roads that lead up to those developments, and I think it's our policy shifted internally that if we have residents there, we want those residents for a fairness question that they can, when they exit their neighborhoods, that they're on city roads. Not that we want, that's more cost to us, but if those residents have a concern about that road, we would rather them be able to contact us, have us address that, than have to contact someone else. So we've changed our policies, and I think for any annexations, we really make every effort to take the roads that are next to or lead.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say that, when we operate through referendum, I mean, it doesn't give us an opportunity to really work together. Working through an ordinance annexation gives us the opportunity to work in an intergovernmental agreement. I think that's a positive for our community. I think, when we have the opportunity to work with you guys and you with us, that's something that I think we should pursue. And operating through the referendum is something that doesn't allow for that. So I hope that we can move forward to a position where we can always work together.
Well, we're going to send one to you this week, so we're going to have that
Awesome.
that privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Joe.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for Joe? Joe, we appreciate you being here.
Well, I appreciate the question, and sincerely, if you have questions, let us know. We're happy to meet individually or as a group I think that that's better for all of our community to be able to make sure that we're on the same page on many of these issues. We may not necessarily always agree, but as long as we know what's coming up and how to communicate those things, I think that's tremendously positive for everyone involved. So just make sure that if there are questions that you feel comfortable enough to contact us or the mayor or any other official. Thank you. You got me into this mess.
I was just going to say thank you for accepting the challenge. I, as a new commissioner, from the start of this, because I grew up in the city, and this was my town. All this was my town. This is where we came to. So the city's very, very dear to me. And going to the city council meetings, they greeted me, with open arms. And we are able to discuss something, whether we like it or not. Our citizens live in the city also, and we do need to work together. I know there's people, some of us on this commission, that don't necessarily like the city. You know what? My mama always said, sometimes you just, get over it. You get what you get, and you don't pitch a fit. But we got to work together in harmony to make our county, our city, to me, is all one, and it's all beloved to me. So let's work together and work in harmony and have a good place to live. This is a great place to live. I don't want to live anywhere else. I was born here. I want to die here. So I thank you, Joe, for always greeting me. And, we've had some conversations about things, and it's just been great just to make things better. To me, that's what it's about, making things better. Whether you like the way it's better or not, like I said again, you don't always get everything exactly like you want it.
And if we can't talk about the things we disagree on, then we're not going to make progress or anything. So we're always open to that. And we understand that it's many different personalities and that, and that's the fun of why I come to work every day and why I chose to walk over here. But thank you, and thank you to everyone for listening. Go on. If you need follow-ups or other questions, feel free to contact us. We'll happy to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Sir.
Okay. We're still friends. Okay. Donut.
So I've been thinking about this also, and it's been bothering me pretty bad because it's in our district and the folks around us are affected by it. And this committee could make an amendment. Polk County has an amendment. If you have 5 acres of property that you're fixing to divide up and sell, that it has to come to the county commission first. And you can also have another amendment that if you start subdividing property, that it has to come to the county commission. I understand, I want growth. I like growth. I like seeing businesses happen, but I like to see it done the proper way. To find out what's up under a piece of ground is very important before you amend it. The property they're mending out on Bakes Pike there, it's limestone. And that's all it is. The whole thing's mostly limestone, maybe 8 foot of dirt on top of it. But y'all can make an amendment to have these properties. I'm not exactly how. I've talked to Crystal about it. But you can make an amendment to where it has to come before the board, a board of the county commissioner or the county commission, to make sure it's done proper. I want to see growth. I don't want to see nobody hurt. I've lived here my whole life too. I want to see things done right, and we can work with them. It can be good, but a lot of times you've got stuck in the back, Mr. Thompson, time after time, I'm sure. But and I think you can make it, figure it out how to do this proper way. Thanks.
We can we'll let Crystal take care of all the legal part of it there. And that's what Crystal's here for, isn't it, Crystal? Okay. So, keep us straight. Okay. Let's go on with it. Any other business? Yes, sir. No other business. Okay. Have we been here long enough? Okay. Communication from the audience. Is there anybody in the audience would like to speak? Okay. Donuts done spoke. Okay.